Well, Razorback fans, man, that sucked.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I'm also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. I doubt it. If you're a Razorback fan, I truly doubt that you had a very fun weekend because Arkansas was unable to take care of business against the LSU Tigers. In fact, they weren't even close. 34-10 final score. LSU beats Arkansas in Fayetteville to keep the Golden Boot and to really put a damper into any sort of momentum that Arkansas had riding into the second half of the season. I tweeted about this, folks, the night of the game, I guess into Sunday morning. I was very upset, as I know a lot of you were. But where I was upset about the game was not that Arkansas lost. It was in the manner that they lost. I predicted Arkansas would win, but it wasn't one of those things to where I was like, oh, 100% guarantee a win. I just looked at all the things that Arkansas had going for them, added it up, and it felt like there was a logical, reasonable feeling to predict that Arkansas would win this game against LSU. I felt like no matter what, it was going to be close. Even if Arkansas lost, it would have been by a very small margin. But I can always count on the Razorbacks to make me look bad and make me look like an idiot. And I don't need their help, really, usually with that. Arkansas looked completely and totally out of sorts. LSU set the tone early. They drove right down the field. Got a touchdown on their first drive, just nickel and diming it down the field. And honestly, that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. Arkansas did a few things here and there, but having 3 turnovers, 2 of them being the most and extremely ill-timed type of turnovers you could have. It's just, once again, you're not good enough to overcome beating yourself. And this wasn't even just about beating yourself. Like, Arkansas just looked like a team that was not ready for this. They looked like a team that was not ready for LSU. Now, I'm giving LSU credit. They're a better team, and they showcased that. They were better coached. They were they had a better roster. They were better prepared. And that, to me, is what's the most frustrating thing about all of this. You had 2 weeks, Razorbacks. You had 2 weeks. You had a bye week. You had that amount of time to prepare for this game and this matchup. LSU is a good team, but they're not great. You know, like, they lost to USC at the beginning of the year. They needed all the things to bounce their way to beat Ole Miss this past weekend. They had other times where they struggled against other teams that were fine. But in this particular one, LSU made LSU look like a number 1 team in the country. I mean, if you really want to break it down, 10 points is the lowest point total that LSU has given up this year. And the other, it's actually tied because you tied with South Alabama. South Alabama scored 10 points. Nichols scored 21. South Carolina scored 33. UCLA scored 17. Ole Miss scored 26. You scored 10. Now, I think a lot of you can understand this, but you're not going to win many, if any, SEC games scoring only 10 points. It's just not going to happen. And if you were going to tell me that's all Arkansas was going to score in this game, I knew that, like, we all would have known that was going to be a problem. But to get as healthy as you got through the bye week, putting all those things together, game planning, riding momentum, all of that, to have this type of performance in front of the fourth largest crowd in Razorback Stadium history, in what was a beautiful night, in what was an incredible atmosphere, in what was an extremely loud atmosphere, energized game, that's what you do. And it's the most Arkansas thing ever. You know, I hate to be that way, but it's true. It's the most Arkansas thing ever. Where you have things going your way, you have a little bit, just a little piece of momentum in your favor for a change, and you're giving it, and it's like, what do you do with it? You completely and totally squash it. You ruin it. And now it feels like you're kind of back to square one. Some people may say that I'm being over the top or over dramatic, but I don't think I am. Again, it's one thing to lose. If Arkansas lost this game by a final score of 34-31 or 34-27, something like that, there'd be a much different feeling where, man, you know, that sucks. You don't want to lose at home, but hey, LSU's a really good team. You fought hard. They just made a play. It'd still be frustrating, but it wouldn't be this just like feeling of complete and total embarrassment in a way. Because you just didn't look ready. You looked like a team that was just rolling in out of bed type of thing. I didn't understand a lot of the approach. I know Arkansas got a little bit going on that one drive offensively when they led it down to a touchdown to Armstrong, but you're talking about Jaquindon Jackson and Braylon Russell and Rashad Dubinion combined for 12 carries. 12. Jaquindon Jackson got hurt in this game. Sure, we'll find out more today on the extent of that injury. But his was later in the game. But how in the world are you only giving those guys that amount of carries? Like, LSU's defense is not great. It's not. If there was a defense that you were going to be able to have some success against in the SEC, you felt like this was your chance. And again, you had 2 weeks to put it together. And this is what you came up with? This was the performance you had? You know, it's amazing, too, how momentum can be such a thing. Not only just in the season, but in this game, because, you know, Arkansas, there for a bit, at least battled back. They got down early. They were down to start the second half, but in the second half, they got the ball back. You know, they were trying to get something going. And then later in the third quarter, you have, with Arkansas, and with a chance to really, really do something, possibly even tie it up, you have a tipped, batted at the line pass from Taylor Green, and that gets picked off by the LSU defender, and he's just a yard or two from the end zone. They end up popping it in. Momentum shifts a lot, not only for the season, but in this game. And that was a momentum killer. I felt like the officiating wasn't great, but I mean, I still think that targeting call or lack thereof was egregious. The fact that they call targeting, but then they reviewed it, they're like, no, that's not targeting. I'm like, no, dude, that's targeting. Sorry. If that's not targeting, then what's the point of the rule? And then the lack of pass interference also on that same drive was pretty incredible. And I'm not blaming the officials at all for this loss. So don't get it twisted. I'm not blaming the officiating. I'm just saying that you had a lot of things go against Arkansas in a lot of different ways, and they're just not good enough to overcome some of those things. It was one of the most annoying games that I've ever witnessed, of just you feeling like any goodwill, any sort of positivity, any sort of confidence that you had is just thrown out the window. Folks, it's amazing what a week can do, because right now I'm looking at it, I'm like, can Arkansas beat Mississippi State on the road? I mean, they should, but will they? Who's to say? Why should you feel confident? Why should we feel confident in it? LSU put Arkansas in their place. That's what it was. They put Arkansas in their place. And I think also one of the other things too that was really frustrating from this game is that Arkansas and LSU, as we mentioned, pretty much at every year of the Sam Pittman era, this game ended in a 3-point margin of victory for whichever team. Always close. Folks, this was not Sam Pittman's, and this is not Sam Pittman's worst team. In fact, I would even make an argument overall. I think it's his second best team on paper, second best behind that 2021 team. And this LSU team is definitely not the best one that Arkansas's faced. I mean, they faced last year the Heisman Trophy winner, you know? But yet, this being one of your better teams under Sam Pittman, this being not as good of a team as we've seen from other LSU teams, but yet you get smashed by 24 points at home. It's unacceptable, and it should not happen that way. But now the question becomes of what's next. Well, we'll talk about it. We'll try to make sense out of it. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, I got to tell you about our friends over at ZBiotics. Yeah, every time that we've all tried that pre-alcohol before drinks, there's always a difference in the next day and everything. Trust me, I mean, people, when they were out there tailgating on Saturday, there was a long day. It was a marathon. Some of the tailgates were starting at first light and didn't end until the very end of it. I'm telling you, it's been wild. But those are the types of events that really can help you with your pre-alcohol drinks that help you feel so much better and so great the very next day. Here's how you use it. You simply drink the pre-alcohol from ZBiotics. And for your best results, you better make it the first drink of the night. Step 2 is that you drink responsibly. You pace yourself, you hydrate, and you get a good night's sleep. Then step 3, you enjoy tomorrow. You wake up refreshed, and you're ready to take on the very next day. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off with ZBiotics. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Where to go from here for Arkansas? You know, it's crazy because you are sitting here now at 4-3. You're still 2-2 in SEC play. So you're halfway point of the SEC contest. You're 2-2. I don't think anybody would have been surprised by that if said, hey, in your first 4 games, you're 2-2. Got the win over Tennessee and Auburn. And then you have the loss over against Texas A&M and now LSU. But no one's going to feel sorry for you, and it's not going to get any easier for you. You got Mississippi State on the road on the SEC Network at 11:45 this weekend, and then you welcome Ole Miss. Ole Miss to the game, to the city of Fayetteville on November 2nd. So before your next bye week, you play the 2 Mississippi schools essentially. Now, this is going to be the do or die game right now. And I feel like I've said that a lot. I know a lot of you have probably said that, but this truly is the Mississippi State game on the road. This is going to decide the season. Is if you lose this game to Mississippi State in Starkville, it's over. It's over. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you, but it's over. If you lose this game to Mississippi State, you're going to lose to Ole Miss. You're definitely going to lose to Texas. You'll probably lose to Missouri. Louisiana Tech, maybe you beat them, but who knows even what's going on at that point in time. But the point is, this is it. This is your final stand. This is your last chance. If you win, if there's ever a time to put it together, it's got to be this time right now. Because if you beat Mississippi State, not saying the season's just like this high level success and everything's hunky dory, but that gets you at 5-3. Then you're 3-2 in SEC play, and you got your next two games against really high quality opponents, but they're both at home with a bye week in between. In Missouri on the road, which I know you haven't won that game very many times, but Missouri looks very average. Very average. So, if you put some things together, here's what would be the best thing ever. This is kind of the best case, most realistic scenario I see. If you beat Mississippi State, I think you can split the Ole Miss Texas. If you can find a way to split that, then suddenly that Missouri game, you've got a lot more confidence and everything. I mean, you're talking about getting to the point to where you go 5-3 in SEC play. That's the best case scenario for me. You're not going to win out, but if you can just beat Mississippi State, split that Ole Miss Texas, which I know is a tall task, and then find a way to beat Missouri finally, you're in great shape, having a great year. But that's best case. Worst case scenario is you win out, you lose out in the SEC, and then it all goes to just crap, and everything's terrible, and nobody knows really what to do. And I think you're finding a new head coach for sure by that point in time. So what they always say is that you have one side and the other side, and the truth is kind of in the middle. Well, the truth is probably kind of in the middle there. Right now, I think a realistic deal is that you're going to lose. You beat Mississippi State. I still believe you should beat Mississippi State. It'll be interesting to see what the line is and the spread for that game once it comes out officially. But you win that, you lose to Ole Miss, you lose to Texas, and then you lose to Missouri. That's probably the more likely scenario. And that'll put you at 3-5 in SEC play. It'll put you at 6-6 on the season overall, and you go to a bowl game. That's about the best case scenario, or at least no, it's not the best case scenario. That's the more likely scenario for Arkansas at this point in time. Because again, it goes back to your confidence level. Like, where's your confidence at? I mean, after seeing what happened against LSU, how confident are you that you're going to win one more SEC game, much less two? It's just hard to really gauge. It's hard to really gauge. But if Sam Pittman, if this coaching staff, if everybody on this team, if they want this to be a good year, if they want it to still save it, if they want to save this season, that's the game they have to win. Mississippi State, the next one on the schedule. Because if I'm sitting here and we're talking about 4-4, 2-3 in SEC play, with your final three SEC games being against top 20 opponents, yeah, I'm not feeling too good about that one. Not feeling too strongly about that one. But we'll talk about the state of the SEC and where Arkansas stacks up with it and where it all bases here in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, I got to tell you about our friends over at the Game Time app. That game against LSU, there's a lot of Razorback fans that are looking for tickets. And I was getting hit up in my DMs and everything from Razorback fans saying, hey, man, have any tickets available? I've always sent them to the Game Time app because it is the best app when it comes to all ticket buying. That's just for sports, it's for concerts, it's for comedy shows, it's for theater, it's for everything. They have it all over there at the Game Time app. It makes it easier to save more, as well as the all-in pricing, which is still my favorite thing, where you can toggle the feature and it shows the total up front. No hidden fees later or anything like that. You see the price, and you get the price all up front. They have seat views as well, so you can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app, of course, before you buy. And it's the lowest price guarantee. So if you find tickets anywhere else, Game Time will make sure to credit you 110% of the difference. It's that simple. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. And download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your very first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Wanted to kind of look around at the SEC once again, dude. The SEC is it's wild. Like, it is a wild and crazy. I can't remember a time it's been this insane. But I guess when you add Texas and Oklahoma into the mix and you got NIL and you got transfer portals, all this stuff, I guess it's just part of it. But anyways, we already know about Arkansas and LSU, but how about Georgia putting it to Texas? I wanted Texas to win in a way because I wanted when Arkansas and Texas to face each other, I wanted Texas to be like number one, undefeated, flying in high. But I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't disappointed at all to see Georgia up 23-0 at halftime. Texas kind of stormed the comeback a little bit, but it was too little too late. And I can tell you this. It was just so good to see like Georgia, because I've always liked Georgia and Kirby Smart. I respect him. But to see them really put Texas in their place and to see those Texas fans start throwing crap on the field, which was really weird because the officials really screwed that whole thing up. There was an interception there by Texas, and then they called pass interference on the defense. And then they went and they started getting mad. They started throwing bottles and everything on the field, and then they huddled again. The officials did, and they said actually there was no pass interference. And I was like, "What? You're telling me that they throw bottles and they intimidated you?" It's what it looked like, and it was disgusting. But those Texas fans, man, bunch of babies, can't even handle it. Oh man, I hate the fact that you're unable to, just deal with the SEC a little bit and not be the people that get all the benefit of the doubt. So it's nice to see him throw a fit. But you got that. Luckily for Arkansas, Tennessee beat Alabama. That helps. 24-17, at least it should. And Tennessee, man, they're back on it. Alabama, they might be cooked, folks. They might be cooked. Like Kalen DeBoer, I feel bad for him in a way because none of it matters. Like those Bama fans, they ain't going to put up with this, man. They ain't going to do it. And they already got 2 losses on the year. They have 2 losses and honestly should have 3. So, they barely beat South Carolina, and also they should have lost to Georgia too. But that's again, they got Missouri coming up next, and they go to LSU. They got at Oklahoma, of course, Auburn at the end. But wouldn't it be crazy to see, because Auburn's 0-4 in SEC play? Wouldn't it be crazy to see like Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and neither team's ranked in the top 25? I mean, that might happen. That might happen. That might happen. But Tennessee, gets the victory over there with Alabama, gets out the cigars. You got Missouri beating Auburn, but they needed every bit of it at the end to find out and to get it because they needed to score 15 points in the fourth quarter to win that one. Auburn didn't score any. Auburn's not good. They're not a good football team. And Missouri, I think, is starting to get really exposed. They're not a good football team either. They haven't looked good. I know they're 6-1, but a lot of that's due to the cream puff of a schedule that they've had. I mean, how crazy is it that they've played nobody? And the time that they actually did play somebody, they got smoked by Texas A&M 41-10. Like they should have lost to Vanderbilt and they should have lost to Auburn. But they got Alabama coming up next. And then after that, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. So there's a chance that Missouri could be the worst 10-2 team of all time. Like they're not good. But, kudos to them for getting that cream puff schedule, whatever it works. South Carolina kicks the crap out of Oklahoma. South Carolina's starting to be one of those weird teams. I don't really understand what they're doing either, but Oklahoma might be a bad team. Brent Venables may be in trouble over there. I thought Vanderbilt would run away with the game against Ball State. They didn't. They won, but they didn't win big. It was 24-14. And then Florida kicks the crap out of Kentucky, 48-20. 48-20. Kentucky. What has happened? They went from a team that got smoked to South Carolina, held their own against Georgia, maybe even could have won, then beats Ole Miss, but then loses to Vanderbilt, and then gets smoked by Florida. I don't know what in the world to make out of them. What is happening? None of it makes sense, but that's really where it comes down to for Arkansas, though. It's okay, so where's Arkansas getting into the mix of all this? Well, Arkansas sitting at 2-2, and I think they're about right exactly what it says. They're in the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit below right now. But luckily for Arkansas, their 2 losses in the SEC have come to the only 2 teams who are undefeated in SEC play. Texas A&M and LSU. Texas A&M 4-0, LSU 3-0. So, yeah, and that was another game, too, that I guess I don't know why I didn't mention it. Texas A&M does beat Mississippi State, but it wasn't a cakewalk. 34-24. A&M does get the victory. But, I guess maybe there's some silver linings there. You've lost to the 2 teams that are undefeated in SEC play. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, man, it's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be an interesting week, to say the least. But appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your night, everybody. We'll see you then.